Stan Gibilisco here, proprietor and operator of amateur radio station W1GV, Whiskey 1, Good Vibrations. I just recalled one of the weirdest antennas I ever tried, and I wonder if you've ever tried anything this weird or this it's not particularly healthy, but we didn't know that back then and nearly as much as we do now in regards to RF exposure. I had a transceiver, a Hallicrafter's SSB transceiver back probably in the 1970s called the FPM 300, Foxtrot Papa Mike FPM 300 transceiver. 200 watts input, I believe, and therefore about 100 to 110 watts peak envelope power output. It would work CW, but it was designed primarily for sideband operation. That was before I was totally committed to CW. Although I used it mainly for that mode, it didn't work. It was not designed for that, and was not especially operator friendly in that respect. But for SSB, it was fine. And I had a set of Hustler mobile antennas. Those are the ones that have the rigid stick below and a loading coil for whichever band you want that you can screw on with a whip antenna on top, and you adjust the length of the whip on the top to get the center frequency at resonance. And then it had a base mount and all of that kind of thing. And it was pretty good antennas. Hustler, I suppose they still make them. I don't know, though. I haven't operated mobile in that respect for a long time. But in any case, I decided, I wonder what would happen if I just took the top portion of that antenna, forgot about the lower part, just the loading coil and the whip above, and attached that to the base mount right on top of the Hallicrafter's Foxtrot Papa Mike 300 transceiver, right on the top of it. And I epoxy glued a specialized base mount right down there to the top of that transceiver so that I had a transceiver with an antenna right on it. And of course, the antenna was right in my face and running 200 watts. PEP, right in your face, is not, well, it's a good way to fry your brain, but I suppose my brain was fried enough already to even think of doing something like that. But as I said, we didn't really understand the full implications of that kind of RF exposure back in those days. In any case, and it had no ground radials, no ground essentially other than the transceiver itself. And I just sat that on my desk in my bedroom in my parents' house, plugged it in using the external power supply, plugged that thing right in, or the AC power supply. I don't know if it was external or not, and started operating. I believe it was on 20 meters, 14 megahertz. And I made a contact with a station in Texas. And I was in Minnesota, Rochester, Minnesota, and this station was somewhere like Dallas. And he gave me a 5x9 plus report. I was booming in there, and he was booming into my radio. We carried on this QSO with this antenna on a box and 200 watts PEP input, maybe 100 to 110 watts, right in my face, as I said. And strangely enough, I didn't seem to have an RFI problem with the radio. If there was one, it didn't seem apparent to me. It didn't disrupt the operation of the radio. So I carried on a few contacts that way just to see if I could, I guess. But Of course, I didn't do very much operating that way because I knew it was a suboptimal antenna. What was interesting, though, is that the antenna worked at all with just the loading coil and the whip on top, and without any of that base portion below, that part between the base mount and the whip, which was usually about 4 feet long, and you figured that was what did most of the radiating, but and would contribute to the uh, matching of the antenna. But I got it to match that way without any transmats or anything, and I just thought that is kind of an interesting story. I wonder if you've ever done anything that bizarre or foolish or primitive, just to see if you could, just to see if you could make it work. Uh, just I don't know why that occurred to me now. I guess it must be because it's the 31st of July, 2018, at about 9:25 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time. That's as good a reason as any. Stan Gibilisco signing off, saying 73 and so long, which, well, on SSB with that particular transceiver would simply translate into see you later, alligator or alligator brain.